Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 4 for this news report today. My website's ggnonline.com. If you'd like to see the news archive, also on YouTube, I have archives, playlists, DDARCO 2012, DDARCO 2013. There's a poll on my website if you'd like to check it out. It's about the recent tornado in Oklahoma, and whether you think it's weather modification. All the headlines and links will be posted in YouTube's video description by tomorrow evening, and if you'd like to donate, it'd be really appreciated through my website, through PayPal. Thank you. Dear class of 2013, you've been scammed. So how the college industrial complex drove tuition so high, so no one else is going to tell you, but it says here, you sit here today, 30,000, 40,000 in debt as the latest victims of what may well be the biggest conspiracy in the United States besides chemtrails. According to the College Board in 1983, a typical private American university managed to provide a bachelor's degree level education to young people just like you for $11,000 a year in tuition and fees. That's in 2012 dollars. Instead, those of you at private colleges paid this year on average of $29,000. So it's a big bubble. Everybody knows about it. Ceiling suspended. U.S. takes on $300 billion in new debt after hitting $16 trillion. America's ticking debt bomb has been reset. Washington has suspended the debt ceiling, setting a date and not a concrete dollar sum as a deadline. So an unprecedented first in U.S. history. It will not be until at least after Labor Day when Washington will have reached their full borrowing capacity, Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew said. U.S. Treasury Secretary says he's begun tapping federal retiree pension funds to avoid default. So Jacob Lew said late Monday he will begin tapping into 2 government employee retirement funds to buy more time before the U.S. Treasury is faced with the prospect of defaulting on the national debt. U.S. federal workers strike over poor wages. So we were just talking about that, right? Federal retiree pension funds they're tapping into. So these people have walked off their jobs in protest over low wages and benefits in Washington, D.C. But it goes on and says in the last 3 years, about 50% of jobs created in the U.S. have been low-paying jobs, according to the economists of RBS. So they basically say that it's hard to maintain a standard of living. 67 senators urge Obama to resolve VA claims backlog. More than 2/3 of the U.S. Senate sent a letter to President Obama on Monday urging his direct and public involvement to end the Veterans Affairs Department's disability claims log. So it says here, despite a 40% increase in the VA budget, the number of claims pending for over a year has grown by over 2,000%. So they have claims of 600,000 or 70% backlog, more than 125 days. U.S. military asked for $450 million for Guantanamo Bay upgrade despite Obama's shutdown vow. So they asked Congress for $450 million to upgrade and maintain its notorious prison and torture camp, Guantanamo Bay. So, but they'll make sure they can afford that, right? Along with all the other bases for the empire scattered throughout the globe. Bernanke to Congress, stop screwing the economy, says he's not taking his foot off the gas with monetary policy. Well, I'm sure he isn't, right? That's so funny. The Fed won't ease up until unemployment drops to 6.5% or inflation passes 2.5. Doesn't expect that to happen until after 2015. Thanks to quantitative easing, Bernanke has injected foreign banks with over $1 trillion in cash for the first time ever. So, it says here 2 years ago, Zero Hedge made the observation that the bulk of the Fed reserves, also known simply as cash created out of thin air, because money is first and foremost fungible, no matter what textbook theoreticians may claim. But it goes on here and it says here, they're showing that the Fed is providing a constant cash injection to foreign banks courtesy of the rate on overnight reserves, which is the amount Fed pays to banks that hold reserves with it. So, says here, as the bulk of reserves continue to end up with foreign banks, a situation set to become a huge political storm in 2014-2015. So it says here, the only recipient of ongoing Fed money printing is not U.S. banks, but foreign banks operating inside of the United States. It says here, Fed's policies have led to foreign banks operating in the U.S. holding at an all-time high amount of reserves, surpassing $1 trillion for the first time. Apple shifted profits to ghost companies. Computer giant avoided paying tens of billions of dollars, U.S. Congressman panel says. And I think his reply is basically like, what? What did we do? Then we have Amazon received more money from UK grants than it paid in corporation tax. So Amazon revealed it received more money in government grants last year than it paid in corporate tax in Britain. So it says it used a subsidiary in Luxembourg to help it reduce its corporation tax bill in the country. Back to the Apple article, it says here that computer giant Apple quietly negotiated an income tax rate of less than 2% with the Irish government, shifted the lion's share of the company's worldwide profits to ghost companies in Ireland to avoid paying taxes in the U.S. Don't worry, the IRS will come for you, right, if you're a small business. No arrest on Wall Street, but over 7,700 Americans have been arrested protesting big banks. And, of course, that's who protects them. So they protect the... Isn't it kind of weird that... that when you think about it, the IRS and the cops enforce the monetary system, and people actually think that they're there to protect them. So we've heard about the too big to fail status of these banks, but then too big to basically put on trial or jail. For-profit prison corporations promise investors a growing offender population. Think progress on the rosy outlook from Corrections Corporation of America and GEO Group, the nation's first and second largest operator of for-profit prisons. During a conference call touting success, representatives boasted that the company continues to have solid occupancy rates in the mid to high 90s and that they are optimistic regarding the outlook for the industry, in part to a growing offender population. So a senior vice president said they had a long-standing partnership with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the U.S. Marshal Service, and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Lastly, during its investor call in February, CEO assured investors a strong continued demand for beds. So it's come to this: 7 high school students arrested for throwing water balloons. Says the weather is mostly hot, school's out. What better way to celebrate summer being almost here than being arrested and charged with a misdemeanor for throwing water balloons. So it says here, it's forever, hail academia, forever teaching our youth that anything and everything will be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Even childhood hijinks our parents would have been approved of if only they weren't so busy arrested themselves. Several teenagers in North Carolina were arrested on Thursday and charged with a misdemeanor for throwing water balloons during a school prank. A parent was also arrested during the incident. 7th person was charged with assault and battery for hitting a school security officer with a balloon. You've got to respect the uniform, even if that uniform is 50-50 polyester. Europe faces decade of stagnation, says head of Bank of Canada. So it goes on and he warned that Europe faces stagnation if it does not apply sustained significant reforms to put its fiscal house in order. Yeah, are you going to do that, buddy? You're going to do exactly what Shalom Bernanke does, which is what? Print. South Korea trade deal produces bleak first-year results for the United States. More than a year after it took effect, the highly touted trade deal with South Korea has failed to produce as expected for the U.S. They say exports are down, imports are up, and the trade deficit with the Asian economic powerhouse has ballooned. This article is originally from Wall Street Journal. That's what it was, but they don't. I don't even think they post any articles at all unless you have a subscription. Kind of like Foreign Policy and Financial Times. Pesticides make a comeback. Many farmers or corn farmers go back to using chemicals as Mother Nature outwits genetically modified seeds. Insecticide sales are surging after years of decline as American farmers plant more corn and a genetic modification designed to protect the crop from pests has started to lose its effectiveness. They say it's a big boon for pesticide makers such as American Vanguard and Syngenta, but it has sparked fresh concerns among environmental groups and some scientists that the most widely touted benefits of GMO crops is that they reduce the need for chemical pest control is unraveling. At the same time, the resurgence of insecticides could expose both farmers and beneficial insects to potential harm. So it says until recently, corn farmers in the U.S. had largely abandoned soil insecticides, but it says here mostly because they cause the corn seeds to generate their own pest-killing toxins, which is probably just as unhealthy as the insecticides. It's too bad that the biggest crops are corn and soy, just crap crops. It's too bad that people can't smaller farmers can't survive. It's too bad that farmers sold out a long time ago to big banks and corporations. The growing global challenge to Monsanto's monopolistic greed. The common problem we face is the power of concentrated wealth and monopolistic corporate interests. They created a crony capitalist economy that uses government to further enrich the wealthy at the expense of the people, often threatening our basic necessities for life, which is, of course, food. They're saying Monsanto threatens the world's food supply. We'll talk about Wall Street as well, as they do too. Monsanto also pushes poisonous chemicals into the environment and promotes agricultural practices that exacerbate climate change. Oh, that dude. What they're doing is wrong. It's poisoning the water supply. It's poisoning the food supply. It's poisoning the soil and all that. So I mean, screw climate change. Just put that on the back burner, there, guys, huh? Especially when they're spraying aerosols that are creating having a warming effect. So, but this is truth out, so you're gonna get that type of stuff. The audacious plan to end hunger with 3D printed food. So from May 21st. So looks like something out of Star Trek, right? I'm sure that's what it was all about in Star Trek on the Enterprise, where they had this synthetic food. You just within seconds, whatever you wanted. And I didn't read this article yet, but here you go. So it says here, a 3D food printer might evoke visions of Replicator, popularized in Star Trek. So. But it goes on here, and it says that the mechanical engineer with a background in 3D printing envisions a more mundane, ultimately more important use for technology. So it says here that I think, and many economists think that current food systems can't supply 12 billion people sufficiently. This contractor says we eventually have to change our perception of what we see as food. So they have a little graph about how it would work, and it's just it's amazing what passes as food today, and then they're just going to take it to the next level. But talking about a food crisis and people going hungry and all these people, 12 billion people, they're talking about in the future. I don't think we have 12 billion people right now, but betting on hunger is financial speculation to blame for high food prices. So yeah, they're talking about speculation for food prices. They make money off of it. Profiting off hunger, Wall Street makes big gains over food price spikes. So powerful firms like Goldman Sachs have made hundreds of millions of dollars in food future trades. Critics accuse them of profiting off starvation and market manipulation, while traders claim their profits are due to increasing consumption in China. And they also talk about here poor harvests in Ukraine and Russia and floods and droughts, and which does happen. But that's what's good about weather modification as well, is that when you destroy the crops and stuff like that, it increases the prices. School experiment discovers garden cress won't germinate near a router. Look at that. So it says here that a group of 5 girls had carried out a science experiment in Denmark that saw garden cress seeds placed in 12 tubs and split into 2 batches. Both batches were placed in different rooms that remained the same temperature and were given the same amount of water and sunlight over 12 days. It's believed that the radiation produced by the wireless routers is what stopped the seeds from germinating. They wanted to basically show the potential impact of phone radiation on surrounding objects. It says you might be surprised to learn about what follows given the 13-year period, since it should have been front page news, but with 5,000 studies now showing biological harm from electromagnetic radiation, this information is now important than ever. It says a T-Mobile funded study into mobile phone radiation covered up to obfuscate profound health risk. They found strong indications for cancer initiating and cancer promoting effects of electromagnetic radiation produced by mobile phones. They show strong indications for genotoxic effects from these fields, such as single and double-stranded DNA breaks and damage to chromosomes, cell transformation, cell growth and promotion, carcinogenic potentials, i.e. cancer, and loss of fertility, among other things. Go in there and check it out. Breast Cancer Charity calls for uniform tests after Gilead admission. Scottish Breast Cancer Charity has called for the same genetic testing criteria to be in place. Oklahoma tornado deaths revised down to 24 from 51, so good sensationalizing. Oklahoma House passes bill to ban UN Agenda 21 along with their neighbor on March 19th. Oklahoma lawmakers who oppose Sandy disaster aid now face disaster. So is it payback? What is it? Barbara Boxer uses Oklahoma tornado being caused by global warming to push carbon tax. But the tornado was stronger than a Hiroshima bomb, which means it could have been HARPed, engineered. But don't worry, there's people like this individual who represent us. Thank you.